When we're not feeling great, we go to the doctor. So why wouldn't we do the same thing with our finances? So on this week's podcast, let's do a financial wellness checkup here on Wisdom and Wealth.
This is Donna and this is Jim, each with a family that had to begin again. As they've brought their worlds together, they've learned a lot about blending families and finances along the way. Now, they're here to help you take on this new chapter with clarity and confidence. This is Wisdom and Wealth, financial clarity for families in transition.
So excited to have this new version of the show now. We're doing it in audio form and video form, and we'll have little video clips and shorts out there on Donna's various different social media outlets, and of course, obviously YouTube and still Apple and Spotify. And we're going to talk about a financial wellness checkup today, as I mentioned a minute ago, Donna, because I mean, we do it with our health, right? It's a pretty easy financial cliche. Check up your health, check up your wealth. Why not, right? So let's just run through a few things for folks and give some folks some ideas, to go. I think the first place to start, review your goals.
Yeah.
Right. How do you know if you're good, if you're healthy? I mean, like I've been losing weight this year. I've lost 25 pounds.
Well,
how do I know how I'm doing if I don't review it? Right. If I don't check the scale, or if I don't continue to kind of, update my goals. Same thing financially.
100%. And I love that we're talking about this topic here at our practice, the Sephton Financial. We just got done what we call March reviews. So we're trying something new this year. So we're trying to do all of our reviews with our clients in the month of March, as well as in the month of August, so that we are really just going in the energy of these wellness checks. And we always start with that very first thing. We are a goal-based planning firm. What are your short-term, long-term goals? And so what we've done is be able to pull up a visual summary of where everyone's assets are and where their accounts are. And we send that out to our clients ahead of time saying all right, what's changed? So that when we're actually in this annual review, we've got some of the background, but that's just numbers on accounts. We have to sit in person. We have to sit on Zoom. We have to sit on the phone. And I need to get a feel of what has changed with your goals, right? Do you want to go find a new job, right? Did your kid graduate college and is now going for their doctorate? That's a bigger expense. Are you helping pay for that doctorate? But those are the conversations. And so we always start with the goal-based plan that we shared, whether it was in 2021 or just last year. And where are we now to these goals? Are they similar? Are they still here? And I love it too, because I say that our plan, our goal-based plan, is a living, breathing document, because it actually feeds into my clients' portals and they can play with it. They can increase their spend, right? In retirement, see if they can make it. They can change the age of retirement. They can delete a goal if they want to. So that's something active they can play with even before they get in the conversation with me. But that's so important.
Yeah, it definitely really is. And you got to have those goals set. So we'll kind of tie this into again, a medical analogy. I'll try to break down a couple of categories here, and I do the doctor version as well as the financial version. So, if you go and you see a doc, right, or typically you see the nurse first, and they check your vitals, right? They do the little, blood pressure cuff and all that junk. Well, that's probably our basic, in and out, right? What's coming in, what's going out, budget and spending.
So really, when we're talking about budgeting and spending, I always say the B word is budget, right? So we're going to call it spending and transaction. Because so many people are like, budget just inside. Their gut reaction is, that's restrictive, right? So spending and transaction. So that's really where we get to the basis point of what does it cost you to be you on a monthly basis, right? And our actual portal that we have, you can link up, like if you do all of your spending on a debit card or your American Express, and we can actually, for my clients that want it, we can go through those transactions and start putting them into categories. And then we can get those categories, and all of a sudden we have a spreadsheet, quote unquote, or a pie chart or a spending plan saying we normally put X amount on insurance each month, right? How does that look? X amount on groceries, right? With inflation, the cost of groceries has gone sky high. Jim and I recently blended our families, and now we're feeding 6 kids, right? My whole spending plan on groceries has changed.
All your money's going to eggs if you guys eat eggs, because they're so crazy expensive.
Yeah, of course, because kids are bulking up. So
that's right.
Of course we're eating eggs. Eggs and bacon. I'm like, okay, I love it. I like good sturdy whatever. But yes, when they say they're bulking up, I'm like, that means I'm going to be poor.
It's costly. Yeah, exactly. It's cost. It's funny that you mentioned that budget, is such a word with people sometimes, because it's like all through your life and the different stages, you've done this, right? Mm-hmm. When you first went solo as a single person, left mom and dad, you had the budget. When you first got married, you had a budget. When you first had a kid, you had a budget. So why in the world, when we're getting close to retirement, 50 plus or whatever, do we start going, I don't want to be on a budget? Well, it's like, I get it. The word's not that great, but we still do it. So
Yes.
make sure that you're tracking it. Yeah.
And that's it.
Okay.
Make sure you're tracking and
Yeah.
make sure too that you know that number, right? Because you'll make better decisions knowing that number. You'll be able to set your cash reserve because you know what 6 months of your costs are, right? Or 3 months of your cost if you have two incomes. And also know too, like that's a really good number to move into retirement with. What parts of that spending plan are going to change when you're in retirement? What might be deleted, right? What might you have to take on that, cell phone runs through your business and now it's running through you. So
that's true.
Good things.
You mentioned the cash reserve. That's actually perfect because it's the second piece here is, getting ourselves, our immune system strong. If we're going to the doctor, we're talking about a wellness check. Well, financial immunity, maybe that emergency fund or that cash reserve kind of gives you a little, think about COVID, when some people lost their job because the jobs couldn't open, they didn't have a lot of people did not have a cash reserve and they were really wishing that they had. That's just one example, but it happens all the time.
No, 100%. And I even know myself, for having a cash reserve when my first husband passed away, it was the cash reserve that I needed to help make ends meet because, his paycheck stopped, just stopped, right? So if I didn't have a little bit of cash reserve or, I'll be honest, we had just moved houses. And so a lot of our cash reserve went into the deposit on one house while we sold the other. So life had to go on credit cards. And that was a really hard thing when you're feeling so financially insecure for life to go on credit cards. So have your cash reserve. And if you spend it, replace it and have a plan on how you're going to replace it. I always say 3 to 6 months. If you have 2 incomes, 3 months of what it cost you to be you. If you have 1 income that you're depending on, 6 months of what it cost you to be you.
Yeah, and it's not easy. I get it to build that up. Maybe automate it. We've talked about that before on the show. If you know you're a little short in that department, figure out a way to automate, some 20, 25, $50, whatever it is, but start getting it on a regular basis pulled out and sent in there. You won't miss it by the time you do that ahead of time, and that'll hopefully help you build up a little bit of defense, a little bit of financial immunity. If you will. You also get a screening often when you go see the doc, Donna. They kind of screen you for this or they screen your blood for that or whatever the case is. So maybe we got to screen that portfolio, and kind of get that investment strategy. That's the point of your checkups. You just talked about having checkups twice a year in case we got to make some tweaks.
Yeah, 100%. I always remember my dad, when he was aging, was on 13 different medications and 5 different doctors, and they weren't talking to one another.
No,
there was
not.
no one really having almost being a project manager for his medication. Right?
They didn't jump on Zoom and talk about your dad's health, right?
Right?
Yeah,
poor dad. But this is the whole thing. When we're sitting down, and if you're just starting with a financial advisor, or it's been a while since we've checked in, we really want to see where all these accounts, right? Especially your investment accounts. Because if you have them all over the place, like my dad had medications and doctors all over the place,
yep.
The main goal of his health wasn't really being taken into consideration because of how they all work together. So if we have our money investing in all different ways, we might be overexposed to a certain asset class. We might be not invested the way that is in line with our risk tolerance when we add it all together. So that's one of those things. Be almost as if the doctor, the intake, the project manager of, here are all your different investments. How are they working towards your financial health, and how can we make it work better? Making sure you're diversified, making sure that you have professional management.
Yeah, because often we probably change jobs. So we've got some old, orphan things here and there. We've talked about we've got stray 401ks here, stray 401ks there. You might have a collection of stuff, and you just don't even know how it's all playing together. So, and you may be taking, way too much risk in one account and have no clue because you haven't reviewed it. So again, that's kind of why the screening of the portfolio, just kind of get it all lined up in there, and so that you have a better understanding. Let's talk about debt diagnosis. So, obviously if you're going to, as you're moving towards retirement, Donna, you're wanting to start to remove debt. Hopefully you talked about, when you first ended up, just you and the kids after
Sure.
your husband passed, you had to live on credit cards. You knew that was killing your debt ratio. You knew it, but that was the only option that you had because of just where you're at in that life, at that time in life. So when we're thinking about diagnosing our debt, kind of getting that under control, especially as we start creeping towards retirement, many of us obviously start the house conversation about what to do, about how to pay it down and whatnot. But clearly, even the other debt right now in this high inflationary time that we're in, people could be feeling like they're living more on credit cards.
100%. And we really have to take a look at what's our short-term debt, like our credit cards, what's our long-term debt, like our mortgage, right? And where are we better off putting money? For many of us, at least at my parents' generation too, paying off the house was that big goal of theirs. They wanted to no longer have a mortgage.
It feels good.
It does feel good. But if maybe you have back from 2021, 2022, a 3.25% mortgage, right? And and credit card debt is now at 22%. Well, there's the economy of scale there.
Yeah, exactly.
And another thing always remember too is that we actually have some solutions for debt. For many of the clients that I'm seeing now, because I do work with a lot of recently empty nesters. Our kids are aged, like my own son is 22, my daughter's 21. They're both going to be out of college within the year. And so now my debt might be some of their student loans, right? So what is my solution for that? I could get a life insurance policy on my daughter so that if something happened to her, the loan could get paid off. Or also knowing which loans are forgivable should either she or I pass and we're both on the loan. These are those conversations that we need to bring up to our financial advisors when we're doing this wellness check, because sometimes it's that protection planning that we have to put into place to help us understand the debt or help our next generation with the debt.
That's a good point. And not only your advisor, have it with your family. Right? Have it with yourself. Sometimes so many of us do not do that, right? It's like, I mean, you could easily be like, okay, I'm going to talk to your daughter about it. Hey, we're going to be doing this. And she might be like, why are you putting life insurance on me, Mom? What are you, crazy? But, but if you explain it, then it would make a lot of sense. So again, communication's got to come into that factor when dealing with that. All right. So we're going to the financial checkup, financial wellness checkup here. So once we've kind of gone through all the various diagnoses, they typically give us some sort of plan of action, right? Well, I'm going to put you on this, or I want to see you back in 3 months, or I want you to lose 10 pounds. That's the standard go-to for all doctors, I swear. I don't think it matters if you're like a skinny or a little rail. I swear, I think they all say you need to lose weight. I think it's like Doctors 101 or something like that. But preventative measures, right? So this is where we're going to get a little more proactive, yeah?
Yeah. And that's a lot of we always call them the action steps, right? And so we're talking about like how B word budget, like bad word. I go right there. I'm like, I'm giving you homework, right? Like these are the things that when we are done, I'm giving you homework and I'm going to be following up. I say to almost all of my clients right before they become clients, I mommy my clients. I'm going to check in.
I was like, I don't want to go back to school, Donna. I don't want homework.
Like, I want to make sure you're doing well. And I'm like, and your homework's going to be like in your summary letter, it's going to be bold-faced. And I'm going to be putting it on to a calendar because you know what? Life does get busy. And my job.
Do I get a gold star if I do good?
I do. I send cookies many times, many times.
Right.
So cookies can kind of fix everything. I know you've been on a diet and you're so good, but cookies.
Hey, I'll take cookies.
Yeah, works. Or tasty cakes. We've talked about that.
Oh, there we go. Yeah. Anyway,
Philadelphia thing with listeners.
Right.
But that's really the big part is, all right, what is our action plan? What are we trying to achieve? And it's my job to make sure that you're staying on the rails, because life gets busy. And even if it's just a check-in here and there, like, hey, did you, open enrollment, right, for your employer? I have a list of when open enrollment is for all of my clients. I'll be like, hey, do you want to share a screen and go through your employment benefits? There might be something new this year. You might be able to get insurance for Fido the dog through your employer nowadays. These are things that happen. They're really, employers are making these benefit packages so lucrative. So those are those types of follow-ups, the homework that I have to be in partnership with my clients to make sure they get to the end. We can all have a great plan, but if we don't action it, it just stalls.
Yeah. And if we're thinking about being proactive, Donna, one of the biggest pieces we should really be thinking about in 2024 is all the time, but it's taxation, right? I mean, we're in the midst of what's probably going to be the most ridiculous presidential election ever. And our tax code is going to, if nothing happens, is going to expire at the end of next year in 2025. And tax rates will go up a little bit back to the Obama administration tax rates. So if nothing else, taxes are going up if they do nothing. So being proactive, one of the biggest things about your financial and retirement life is how to be as tax efficient as possible. So do not discount that one, because then back to my comment about the election, depending on what happens, we could see tax code changes. So it may not even be 2026 when they change. It could be sooner, depending on what happens at the end of this year. So just be aware that taxation could be a real kicking the pants to your retirement accounts.
No, and that's something too, that if we're going to be talking, like we said, we're meeting with our clients in these big month segments. We do have, this is the talking point that we want to bring up, right? And it could be the change of tax code. Should you use a Roth or should you stay tax deferred? Things like that are those topics of choice. Just like your doctor would be like, okay, today we're talking about cholesterol, talking to all of my patients about cholesterol. And then we all have it.
How'd you know my doctor was talking to me about cholesterol?
Things happen.
They all do that. But, I mean, no matter what it is, right? Adequate life insurance, taxation, Social Security maximization, whatever it is, the proactive plan of how are we addressing whatever your pain point is, right?
Yeah.
So as you're talking, since we're keeping it in the health department, as whatever your pain point is, bring it up to your financial professional. That way, when you come back for our final piece here, Donna, which is the follow-up, maybe that's that later conversation. You see the doc in March, which is kind of the review. You see you again in, what'd you say, August or October?
August.
You come back in October or August, then you're like, all right, hey, I checked off this or this or this, or, we're going along the right way. And again, that's the point of following up and working with a financial advisor, is having these checkups.
Yeah, and having a partnership, right? I think we've just shared in a previous podcast, like there's usually in a couple or a partnership, one person that's taking the lead on the finances.
Yep.
So at least we're saying, okay, we're going to touch it again, right? And if this is only the second time that our partner comes to the visit, okay, but at least twice a year, they're paying attention to the finances. So they have an overall feeling of what's happening and an awareness. That's all we ask.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, we're going to be having a video with Jim's going to be joining us on a video a couple of weeks here later on in the month for this new style we're doing. And I know that, that he helps out around the practice, but he's also a carpenter. So, same kind of conversation. I'm sure there's quite a few things where he talks carpentry and you have no clue. And you talk finance and he has no clue. Right. And that's totally fine. That, oftentimes we have that person in our life that one person gets this and one person gets that, but you still want to make sure that you guys are working with someone who can explain it to you both and keep you both in the loop.
Exactly. And then that way, if something happens to either one of you, I'm sitting here as your financial advisor, keeping the conversation moving and keeping that plan in a forward movement. So yes, Carpenter Jim made my wall. So anyone who's looking.
Right. There you go.
That's Carpenter Jim.
Carpenter Jim. Well, he's going to join us on the show here in a couple of weeks, so make sure you come back and check that out. I think it's going to do it this week here for the podcast. We just kind of wanted to get started with our new video format. So again, don't forget to check us out online. You can subscribe to us on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, and of course you will have all the links in the show note descriptions here below. And if you need to reach out to Donna, again, we'll have that there as well. But just go to SephtonFinancial.com. And anytime you check out the podcast in any form, there's always the show notes details where you can always find some of this basic information that I typically give out on the program. But feel free to reach out to her at SephtonFinancial.com and get yourself onto the calendar for a consultation and a review. Donna, thanks for hanging out. Good to see you and talk with you, and looking forward to doing more content.
Oh, thank you so much. I like our new format, Mark.
I do too. Yeah, it'll be exciting. We'll kind of keep this going. And hopefully, if you guys like the new intro and show intro and things we've got as well, leave us a comment in the sections box below and let us know what you'd like us to talk about, as well as we're going to continue to go through investing, finance, retirement, transitioning families, blended families. There's so much of that. I mean, even great silver. I just saw something to Donna today. Silver tsunami is what they're calling the retirement wave. So there's the gray divorces, which is more and more people, as you know, of graying looks.
Oh, I've got
it. Over 50 getting, divorces or losing a loved one, and remarrying. And so we're going to talk a lot about that with you and Jim and just how that looks, because you've gone through it. He's going through it, so it's going to hopefully help bring some information to folks who might be in that similar situation, because there's so more of us all the time, every day. It seems like those numbers are growing.
And I think so many times that we actually understand financial topics through storytelling, right?
Yeah.
And so you'll actually hear of Jim and my experience and some of our favorite clients' experience as to like, how did we handle it, right? It might not be appropriate for you, right? But you know how we did. And I think that'll be a really good takeaway for listeners.
Yeah, I think so as well. And because, life is life, but usually when it happens to one person, there's a good chance it's happening to a whole lot more than you often realize. So again, don't forget to subscribe to us, and I'll wrap it up with that and say thanks for hanging out with us. We'll see you next time here on the show.
Registered representative offering securities through Cetera Financial Specialists LLC, member FINRA SIPC. Advisory services are offered through Cetera Investment Advisors LLC. Cetera is under separate ownership from any other named entity. Sephton Financial LLC and Cetera are not affiliated. Sephton Financial is located at 8200 Flowertown Avenue, Suite 4B in Windmore, Pennsylvania. Zip code 19038.